Alright guys, back for day 31, the last day of the month. Today I'm painting a Dark Angel Plasma Cannon Devastator, and I'm starting out just like I started yesterday, with Skaven Blight Dinge, dry brushing that all over the miniature pretty heavily to make the surfaces basically gray. Then going into some Dawnstone and dry brushing again, but lighter than the first coat of dry brush. And now followed up with a very, very light dry brush of Pallid Witch Flesh, just on the very edges of things and kneecaps, stuff like that. Next, I go into some Nuln Oil, and this is going over the entire miniature, just to make all the dry brushing we just did soften up a little bit, I guess you'd say. Kind of blends it all together. What this also does is, since we primed this miniature black, primer always has a different finish than normal paint. So by putting Nuln Oil over it, it makes the finish the same. Now we're going into some Grey Knight Steel, and we're doing all the metal in this. So this is going to be the big cord you see that I'm painting right now. The details on the gun, the details on his head. He's got a little bit of detail on his chest, detail on his backpack, the joints between his armor, and a couple other details on his foot. But just going through, we're going to put some shade over this later, but for now, just blocking in all the silver. One day soon we'll finish this silver. There's a lot of silver detail on him. I could go into several different metals, but I'm not looking to go super fancy on these guys. Just block them out, get them done, and they'll look just fine. So, not going to concern myself with that. Alright, now I'm just putting some Screaming Skull on the parchment part of the Purity Seal. And now some Mephiston Red for the wax part of the Purity Seal. I'm also doing one of the cables that you can see exposed on the big thing connecting the backpack to the gun in that same color. Now I'm using some Fire Dragon Bright and painting in his eye lens. Now I'm doing the other cables on that attach the gun to the backpack. The first one is in Sotek Green. The second one in Baharoth Blue. The third one is going to be in Talarn Sand. Then, as soon as that's done, the next one is in Genestealer Purple. And then the last one in Warboss Green. And I just made sure to line up. You know, the first cable on one side is the same color as the first cable on the other side. Second cable lines up with second, etc. So now I'm doing the plasma, and I'm starting off with Pallid Witch Flesh and just painting this basically on the edge of the coil, in between the gun and the coil. Then I'm taking some Sybarite Green and painting the rest of the coil with this, painting right up to the white, maybe overlapping the white a tiny bit. And we're going to come back over this in a minute with the glowing paint to really give this a good glow effect here. Now I'm using some Talisar blue to paint the eye lens of his little camera thing, as well as his targeting reticule. Now I'm washing over all the silver with Nuln Oil, just to dull it down a little bit, shade it where it needs to be, that kind of thing. Just bring it in line with the rest of the miniature, basically. Then I just added a tiny little bit of Gryph-hound orange on top of his eye lens. Now I'm making sure he's nice and dry so I can do the next step on the plasma. This paint requires a good shake-up, and this is Tesseract Glow technical paint. Originally intended for Necrons, but I use it for plasma. Put it all over the white and the green we used earlier, as well as inside the muzzle of the gun and in the little exhaust ports on the side. Then just a little bit of Skeleton Horde on the Purity Seal, and a little bit of Blood Angels Red on the wax of the Purity Seal. Now we're on to freehanding the Dark Angel symbol. I'm not an expert at this, but I basically just draw a T and 2 triangles with a curvy side, fill those triangles in, and then take some black and come in and go in between where the feathers should be. Here I'm just filling in the sword, make it look a little more sword-like. So now I'm taking some black Templar contrast paint and just filling in here between the feathers, and I'm also blocking the entirety of that shoulder pad in with this black Templar to make sure that there's no difference in the color between the parts of the wings and the rest of the shoulder pad. That shoulder pad will be darker than the rest of the miniature, but I think that's okay since that's like the chapter symbol. So now we're moving on to the base, and I'm just using some Armageddon Dust, not contrast paint, texture paint, that's the word. Just putting that all over the base, making sure it's different thicknesses, just so it looks pretty realistic. Then this is going to take a while to dry, and while I'm drying this, one thing that I did not film, because I forgot to do it until after this was over, is I just took some Cygor Brown and did very thin lines on the Purity Seal, on the parchment parts, just to look like words were written on them. Forgot to film that, though. Now I'm taking Gore Grunt of Fur and putting that over the base. This is the base color that all these guys will be, so makes it a quick 2-step process to get the base done. I think that's just fine for my purposes. Now I'm painting the base rim Abaddon black, and that will be that. The final miniature is done. So here's some pictures of the completed miniature. I think he came out pretty well. This video is about, what's it, about 9 minutes long or so? 8.5 minutes long. And this was on 5 times speed. So that's about 40 minutes. I did cut out some of the drying time, but painting time is about 40 minutes. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you tomorrow for the start of a new month.